Yes, to date, you still do need an MMP. But should I pay for the MMP or should I go for the free version? I strongly encourage you, if you're serious about your app development, not necessarily game, you definitely want to look into doing the expenditure of getting a paid MMP.
Welcome to Mobile Growth and Pancakes, a podcast by StoreMaven. We break down how and why mobile apps grow. In each episode, we invite a mobile growth expert onto the show to break down a specific mobile growth strategy, how it worked, why it worked, and what they would do differently. I'm your host, Esther Schatz.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Mobile Growth and Pancake. I'm your host, Jonathan Fishman. I'm a VP Marketing and Growth here at StoreMaven. And today I'm really excited to have here with me Enric Pedró, who's VP Growth at Tilting Point. Hey, Enric.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm really excited to do this. But before we start, you have a really interesting path, like the way that you got to be Tilting Point VP Growth. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So I always start stating that I've been lucky enough to live and work in 5 different cities. So I started my professional career in Barcelona. Then I moved to London to do a master's on interactive media by the London College of Communication. In fact, not a well-known fact, but my MA thesis was about the opportunities of in-game advertising. That was about 12 or 13 years ago.
Interesting.
So I guess it was, but back then I was already interested in what I'm doing right now, which is always a good sign.
Was there an interesting conclusion to the thesis?
Yeah. So back then, I was looking into big brands, Coca-Cola or Domino's, on what they were doing online. It wasn't the offer walls, and mobile gaming was on its infancy. So back then, what is being done right now, it was inconceivable. It wasn't an option. Summary is that brands back then, they had to do a leap of faith and take the risk and try to understand that new medium. It's interesting because it was 12 or 15 years later, the market changed a lot. I believe that you will still need to make an interesting pitch to a big brand. But now you talk about, I don't know, Fortnite, everyone is going to know about it. 15 years ago, I was trying just to push for getting brands to somewhat relate to what I was trying to accomplish with my thesis. Just most people I was talking to, they had no clue whatsoever about video games. So I guess after 15 years, good to see that things have changed there. So in London, after my master's, I was working for Wild Tangent, which is a company based in Redmond. So I was assisting on their media front, which was basically doing in-game advertising, first on PC and then on mobile. After that, I joined a startup, which is called Linking Mobile. They were part of a group called Mobile Future Group, which they were the same co-founders as AdX, AD-X, which was one of the first MMPs in the space. So we're talking about when Adjust didn't exist, I think. AppsFlyer was just starting. House offers wasn't even tuned, so it was house offers. So talking about when marketeers were running on a cost per click and CPM basis rather than cost per install. Cost per install wasn't an option. So that's where I started on mobile. After that, after a couple of, they got acquired by Criteo. I stick with Linking Mobile, which was the mobile network. With that, I moved after a couple of years to New York to open their office and be the spearhead on their expansion in the US. I did that for a couple more years, and then I moved to another mobile network called Mobusi, which was a huge affiliate network, mobile affiliate network back then. I moved to LA, so London, New York, LA. I was in Los Angeles for 2 years and a half or so, and then the opportunity. Same group, Fibonet Group, which is owned back then, Mobusi, owned as well, or was a co-owner of a gaming company called LabCave Games. And that's where I started my proper, call it, inception in mobile gaming growth. As you know, I've been saying for the last few years, I've been working with mobile, but that was with LabCave, where I went hands-on and exclusively with the gaming. I was in Madrid for this position for about 2 years and a half. And then an opportunity happened to open or offer here in Barcelona. So after being abroad for over 10 years, I thought that was a good decision to get back home, as in Barcelona. I joined a casino company called Zidro. They develop the big machines like 2 meters or 6'4" or 6'5" meters, feet tall, and rings and bells and whistles. What you see in Las Vegas, that's the type of machine that they developed. But I was leading the mobile front, so doing social casino. I was there for about a couple of years, and then Tilting Point offering was there. I saw it. I discussed with a few people that I know in this space. I knew Tilting Point from, well, who doesn't know Tilting Point now, but I knew Tilting Point from years in the space as well. And I thought it was a great company to join. And after a few interviews, I was lucky enough to accept the offer or get the offer. And I've been with Tilting Point for 9 months now as VP of Growth.
Awesome. Yeah, and of course, everybody know Tilting Point, but probably less their portfolio of games. So what kind of games Tilting Point is publishing and developing?
Sure. So we currently manage about 40 different games. Recently, there are news as well that we acquired a developer called Budge Studio, which they develop or they have a portfolio of more of a kid-focused games, the younger demographic. To your question, we touch pretty much almost every genre except hyper casual. We have some games that might be close to what you would call hyper casual, but it's from a match puzzle up to a 4X game like a Star Trek or a Warhammer. With that, in terms of the games that we look to work with, we don't have any constraints. We ultimately look into the game performance as well as the capability that we believe that our team can bring on the table to this developer to actually help them grow their game and ultimately change. The mode is for us to be able, Tilting Point, to be able to change the developer's life. How we change their life is making their title, skyrocket to high revenue or high number of installs. So then they can either choose to keep developing on that title or perhaps work on other titles, as well as we can provide, from the growth team, all the systems that we can provide, UA and organic ad monetization analytics, as well as cash flow. Some companies, it's a 2 people, 3 people operation. They just had a good game that has good metrics, but they do not have the means to actually scale the game effectively. We're talking about, hey, I need, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 to an indie developer. That's the life, that could pay their life for the next 3 years, probably, what you're looking to spend in a month. So obviously, when you're talking to these smaller developers, game developers, it does make sense as well that an entity such as, or a company such as Tilting Point brings the expertise, but as well as the financial means to help them grow their game.
Great. Wow, that's a really interesting path. I would say that you're one of the most experienced people in mobile these days, given that you started really early on. And I really love the fact that you got back to where it all started in your hometown of Barcelona.
Yes, it's good to see as well that Barcelona is becoming a gaming hub. I'm feeling a lot to talk about 15 years ago, but the truth is 15 years ago, there were some gaming companies, but Social Point wasn't Social Point. There was no Game Love, there are no deep and no Tilting Point. The heavyweights weren't here. So I do wonder if it was the Enric now, today, 2022, if I will ever move out from Barcelona, because these opportunities weren't here when I started in the space. But I was glad that I travel around. It opens, getting exposure to different cultures, different ways of work. That's definitely helps you grow as a professional, but as well as a human being.
Yeah, for sure. I had the same type of experience. I lived in the US for some time in New York. And also now, like looking at, I'm from Tel Aviv, so looking at Tel Aviv and seeing that it's also growing to become a pretty significant gaming hub. I'm really happy to see that, and it was impossible to think that gaming companies would exist in Israel 15, 20 years ago. Just like unheard of. So it's really fun to see.
Big companies, actually. They are the big, one of the few biggest ones in the space as well. I'm coming from Israel. Big guys from the country, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like a company like Moon Active was something that it was, if somebody would had the idea of starting a game company like that 20 years ago, folks would laugh, like it would be unheard of. It was like known that Israel can't be in gaming, and then it happened. So it's a really nice journey to see from just from being in Tel Aviv, and I'm sure it was the same in Barcelona.
That's right.
Cool. So what a lot of people are interested in is, given that every mobile gaming company is different, is how the team is structured. So you're leading growth. How does that look like? How many people you have on your team, and what kind of responsibilities do you have, and how do you structure it?
So in terms of a structure, kind of I hinted a little bit when we were talking about earlier. We have within the growth team separate departments, which is the user acquisition, the organic, ad monetization, insights and analytics. Well, insights and analytics. With that, each team function, obviously, as the name states, have a different to do by game. But ultimately, what I've been trying to accomplish in the last 9 months is to get each one of these teams to work hand in hand or closer together. Now, it's one of those things that is easier said than done because, or as well, when Tilting Point, it's a big company, right? We have hundreds of employees. When you're managing a team is over 30 people. When you're managing these many people, you need to rely on your leads, but you need to make sure as well that the team, under the leads are actually as well talking to each other, not within the same department, not within the UA team, not within the organic team per se, but between both departments, as in organic talking to the UA talking to monetization, insights team providing the rationale and why we're working with this game. All of these that people who are maybe hearing to this episode, and they're a small team or like 5-10 people. These are growing pains, right? When it gets grower, it's like people thinking, how is it possible these teams are siloed, or what Enric is saying right now? This will never happen to me. Well, trust me, I was thinking the same, but then when you become such a big entity, these are the growing pains that you need to make sure that we are all aligned. And it's things that are no-brainers. Like, for instance, I'm just going to give you a random example. Let's say that we drop the install number or the spend that we're going to make in the US for a specific game for the next week by 30%. Obviously, the organic team is going to be directly impacted by that. Ad monetization might be as well because lower number of impressions too. The no-brainer would be, hey, the UA team is going to inform each one of the leads or whoever is managing that game that as of next week, 30% of the investment is going to be reduced in the US, etc. But making sure that this is actually following suit, where we draw a line, which benchmarks we're looking into, how at what point I'm stating 30% is a lot of budget being decreased. Is it 30% of $1,000? Is it 30% of $100,000? Because the impact is going to be different as well. So all these nuances as well is that where we currently focusing on. And what's being really beneficial and just a key take that I will give people listening to the episode right now is try to bi-weekly, try to, you cannot force people to talk to each other, but you can try to showcase or lead by the example and try to maybe throw some ideas or showcase why there is a need to get each team to talk to each other. On some instances, people get really focused on their own duties, their day-to-day. Hey, we're all super busy, right? You and manager has many campaigns to optimize, many creative to request, many roles to talk to, et cetera, et cetera. So it's normal that some people get fixated on the day-to-day, but we need to see or try to help them to see as well the bigger picture and how their day-to-day impacts the other teams. Once they see that, don't get me wrong, it's not that Tilting Pointers don't see that. It's just that once you make it more clear, then there is no question on why there is a need to make sure that each team talks to each other, and we are in a synchronous, like we work hand in hand. That's when you actually see the best results happening in our titles.
I totally agree. I think that it's just by communicating or making sure that folks know that their job is impacted by other teams to the better and for the worse, that they would agree to work with each other closely. They have to understand that how it impacts their own day-to-day and the fact that they're measured on it. Even, outside of mobile, even in I'm in B2B marketing, you see that all the time. Like there's somebody managing the social account, let's say on LinkedIn, and the number of followers are really influenced by the amount of hiring activities. So the more hiring activities exist, you get more followers, and that's how these two teams within marketing influence one another. So only when they understand the dynamic, they would sit down and plan and agree to work with one another.
Correct.
So let's take some stock of what happened in the past year, which is a lot. Like you've been in mobile for so long. I can't remember. Maybe iOS 11 when the App Store design has changed and they started to actually report on search, browse, and referral traffic separately. That was a big change, but it's nothing compared to what happened in the past year with iOS 14.5, the deprecation or the de facto deprecation of the IDFA. And then, of course, iOS 15 with all the new App Store marketing capabilities and more data within App Store Connect. Then, of course, Google announcing their own version for privacy. They call it the privacy sandbox. It's not going to happen this year. They've set a timeline for like 2 years, but it's going to reach Android as well. I do know that Android was kind of a safe haven where some folks just, changed the mix of how they spend and shifted it towards Android as a way to battle the challenges in iOS. But I'm interested to learn what Tilting Point and what you have done to handle these challenges, starting from iOS 14.5, which is more challenges in getting targeting right, and of course, attribution and measurement and everything that stems out of the loss of the IDFA.
Sure. So we tried to make the most of the fact that, as you mentioned, Jonathan, that many people will be leveraging or they will focus more on Android, Google, or things that then change as much as iOS. So we try to leverage that and actually focus more on iOS rather than Android, because there was a room of opportunity of a few months where rates were actually lower on iOS, and on you could tell even from a monetization perspective, you could tell from the CPMs. Android were going higher. iOS were, somewhat not decreasing, but they weren't as high. So we tried on the first few months, we tried to leverage that and basically just making the most of available traffic, because developers who made their homework or tried to make their homework because we knew that iOS 14.5 and IDFA deprecation was coming and it was delayed. Gosh, 3-4 times, and you probably, Jonathan, you remember better than I do. I think it kept dragging on. It was October, then it was supposed to be January, and then it just kept dragging on. So if you didn't hear the warnings, you had a bit of time to work it out, despite the black box on how Apple tend to operate. With that said, so on the first few months, we focus on that. Then ultimately, what we realize is that some games, either given the set of events that we were sending, or given the nature of the type of game that we are managing or that we own, we obviously realize that some events are not as easy to be sent as other games. I'm just going to give you an easy example. I'm talking on a social casino game where I might be aiming to target or I want to attract more people who spend money, right? So buyers, ultimately whales. The problem with social casino games is that in order to hook the player, you tend to give away many, many credits, or coins, or whatever hard currency you want to call it on the game, for maybe 5 days, a week, in hopes that the user gets used to the game and starts enjoying the gameplay. And next thing you know, they hook to the game, they end up doing the acquisition. Before iOS 14.5, that was straightforward, and big social casino companies, a few Israeli ones, they were making a lot of money with that strategy. Now this completely changed or shifted with the IDFA deprecation, because that signal of who is a buyer, the time period that you have in order for you to be able to send an event to call it Facebook, for instance, saying, hey, this player actually converted, it's limited. So what I'm trying to pinpoint with these, I was giving you the example of social casino. Now we use an example as a casual game. I don't know, a puzzle, match three puzzle. The conversion it's definitely shorter. You can as well maybe work on other events. So I'm just actually going to give you the answer to what I will do if I was managing a social casino game. It will be to focus on events that might not be revenue directly related, but do have an impact on revenue. Mm-hmm. So if a player hits level number 10 on the first 2 days, I know that he's a super engaged player, and therefore I'm going to call it a custom event called Super Engage. And I'm going to send this signal to Facebook. So I attract more type of super engaged players, and just make this example on the go. But what we came up with the realization on the 14.5 additive deprecation is that we had to apply a different strategy by the type of game or genre. Now, this is easy if you are one developer who focuses on one step again. Hey, we only do racing games. Hey, we only do upper casual games. Hey, we only do casino games. Tilting point. The beauty of it is that we are seeing, as I mentioned earlier, almost every single genre in the space outside upper casual, which we do not touch that much. The rest of genres, we have had our fair amount of experience, which give us a pretty good understanding, or that's what I was saying before, that we had different performance based on the type of game, as well as on the type of events that we're sending over, and as well as the type of optimization that we're going after.
Cool. And for a company with such a large portfolio of games, did you also lean into cross promotion as a way to basically balance the potential hit from bad UA metrics?
Sure. So we thought about it. The problem, quote unquote problem, mm-hmm. is that as I mentioned to you earlier, when we're managing, so we have our own co-development games, or games that we own, and on those, I said Warhammer or Star Trek, etc. Mm-hmm. On those, it could potentially make sense for us to work on a cross promotion. On the rest of our games, which are on the live publishing, so we are effectively their publisher. Going to the developer and say, hey, I'm going to do a cross promotion from your game, so I take up your audience and I throw it in a different game that's under our publisher funnel. It doesn't come across as a good thing, right? It's not something. Yeah. I mean, I want to think, and maybe some developers get it, but it's ultimately on the paper, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make that much sense unless you are managing it's your own portfolio and it all falls under the same P&L that ultimately is paying the same salaries, right? And what I'm trying to say is that a developer under this publishing funnel, it might not be as open or as willing to do this cross promo, because ultimately, hey, maybe we were managing another one of their games, and then you could argue, okay, we might try to get some of your existing audience from game A to game B, because they own both games.
Yeah.
But different developers, that's not gonna. Tell me your thoughts. How you?
No, it's really interesting.
I'm gonna put a cross promo. I'm gonna put it to someone else's. They're like, yo, you're stealing my audience. Like, well, technically, I am. So yeah,
it's really interesting because for companies, I think Eric Seufert calls it content fortresses, like companies that have the AppLevin, for example, is one of these. When they have a lot of in-house games, they have a game studio, and it doesn't really matter because, as you said, like if the user switches from game A to B, it actually is going to do great things to the P&L because you're going to get more revenues out of that player because you get them playing for longer. And the alternative is that player would churn. They would just stop playing. Yeah.
It churns or lose to another competitor, whereas you maintain them within your catalog of games. So, hey, I might be losing from game A, but I maintain this is a new player now. And even I can, track, hey, is it a whale? So I expect this guy is going to spend at least $500 in the next 3 months on a similar game or title. It makes sense for some developers. Again, when it falls on the same P&L, tilting point on the publishing funnel, I don't think, not for now.
No, I agree. I agree. It's very problematic when there are different developers and they do want to keep sorry, they do want to keep the player in the same game. They don't get anything if the player continues to play game B. Yeah,
there you go. But even about our own games, right? So you can talk to a game manager, SpongeBob game manager. I'm just gonna make a random example.
For sure.
And then I talked to the Star Trek game manager and said, hey, I'm gonna put a cross promo, even though it's a different. Let's say it's the same target audience. Okay. Hey, I'm gonna put a cross promo from a Star Trek to SpongeBob. No way. No way, because you're gonna still be on more players. Like, what it's out for me? Well, no way. Hey, maybe it might make sense on some instances. Maybe it's an evergreen game, or maybe it's a game that we have on harvester mode. As in, we know that these players are gonna churn. There is no, it's like the last benefit, or like, hey, this game is, it's not falling, but it's like represent, I don't know, 10-15% performance quarter by quarter. We know in a couple of years it's going to be, it's going to be a dead game. Might as well just try to leverage existing active audience and just actively cross promo some of our other games.
Yeah, definitely. I think I totally understand your specific situation. I think that one interesting thing here, just in general, maybe not for a tilting point, but companies that have a lot of games in a lot of different genres can actually start to do a lot of interesting things with data and analytics in terms of affinity. They can find, they just can have a lot of data about what kind of genres people have affinity. Like if somebody's playing a detective-themed match 3 game, what else would they probably want to play, even if it's in different genres? So that kind of data and analytics that they have from their first-party data is, as long as they have a really, really sizable audience size, like, more than 100 million MAUs, they can actually start becoming their own exploration or own discovery platform. And some companies are doing that even from unexpected places, like Netflix, with their own venture into gaming, starting to build their own discovery platform for mobile games within Netflix. So it's and they know a ton about preferences based on what people watch. So
we tried as well with mediation tools. Won't drop any names. Just common. You mentioned one, the biggest ones.
Yeah. The mediation battle is very fierce. We can't pick a side.
The mediation tools. So we tried some tests with them. They did not perform as expected. So conclusive results, it didn't perform, and we had to go back and forth with the different teams. So for now, it's not something we look into it. We thought about it. It's not something that we have been actively deploying as a mean to counteract the IDFA deprecation.
Got it. Cool. And moving forward to iOS 15, it has two sides of it. One of them is the new marketing capabilities, I would call it, in-app events that I know that you folks, we had an episode with Jovan focusing mostly about that. And of course, custom product pages that are kind of in the middle, I would say, of rolling out in terms of support by different ad networks. I do hope that Facebook support it in the coming months. Those are at least the rumors.
It sounds like. Yes, we heard there is some beta going on.
Yeah, there are a lot of rumors of some alpha program being...
Alpha. No, even beta, alpha. You said better than I did, alpha, yes.
Yeah, so it's happening. Probably they'll roll out support in a few months, maybe towards the summer, just my guess. So there's custom product pages. There's, of course, product page optimization. So the ability to A/B test to some degree creatives on the default product page for mostly organic traffic. At least that's the intention behind this feature. And a lot more data within App Store Connect. So Apple, after they took away, I think it was Simon Tilley from AppTweak that said it, sometimes they take something away and then they bring something back that is different. So they took away the IDFA, which kind of broke the way that attribution is done through MMPs, at least on the self-attributing networks, like because a lot of ad networks, let's just say the truth, are still doing a lot of things with fingerprinting, so they kind of maintain the same status quo.
Clock is ticking. I know most of our audience knows, but fingerprinting there's a deadline on that.
There is. Yeah, there's a lot of opinions on the market. I definitely hold the opinion that it will go away. It's just a matter of when Apple would be pissed enough and when they have the best way to enforce it. I think if folks want to look at clues about that, you can just look at Google Privacy Sandbox, because they announced they're just going to have a runtime environment within apps that is specifically for SDKs. So SDKs won't even have physically the ability to read all the parameters, all the device parameters they need for fingerprinting, and it can be enforced. And all of the SDKs would be reviewed by the team. So it would be separate to the code review of the app. But once they figure it out, fingerprinting is going to go away. And analytics and measurement, or the data stack of most teams, also has changed a lot in the past few months. And I know that you guys have a lot of thoughts about that. So how are you viewing all these changes, and what are you doing to leverage them?
With the organic team, I know you had the podcast episode with my colleague about a month ago or so. We have been looking a lot into leveraging CPP, the custom product pages. As you said, we have been testing several tools or partners who had something available to test the CPP. I wouldn't say inconclusive tests. It's just that the implementation to date has been, I wouldn't say a nightmare, because nightmare is really, really bad. I would say not great. Didn't work. It's early stages, right? As you said, with a Facebook Alpha, I think that's gonna really unlock a lot of that potential as well with Apple search ads too. It comes a time when they release, or Google releases something new, and then it's how long it takes for the industry to catch up, as well as how feasible it is for anyone who is willing to, say, deploy CPP, that they're actually doing so. It could take, even say our team is ready to start working on CPP. You could have the creators and everyone, okay, but how do we deploy this? How am I tracking the results? Each URL that Apple gives me, how I'm tracking this back to the Salvatore network. Right now, there are some, as I said, there are some solutions in the space, but they're
very limited. But I think that Apple basically showed at least the way they want to tackle this.
We're moving towards the right direction. I will say this, I think.
Definitely. And I think that Apple showed us a bit, they're kind of unveiled their plan of what they think or how they think you should be measuring custom product pages and marketing in general, which is through App Store Connect. Of course, it's still early days, so there's a lot of things that are still being implemented there, or bugs that are being fixed. We all know App Store Connect bugs that haunt us from time to time, but eventually they'll figure it out. And custom product pages, for example, they immediately added a way to not only measure the amount of first-time downloads or re-downloads, but also revenue. So when they combine these two things, as long as you monetize through in-app purchases, of course, they can see your revenues from ads. But if you do monetize through in-app purchases, and which campaign is set to be, or the destination of which campaign goes to which CPP, you can actually get back privacy first aggregated revenue metrics, which is half of the ROAS calculation for a certain campaign. Without an IDFA. So they rolled it out. It exists. They're still working out on the implementation, but it exists in App Store Connect. So I think what they brought back is a lot of data, which is revenue and cohorted revenue within App Store Connect, that they wish at least would be adopted by the industry as an alternative way to measure UA performance.
There was as well the means of for the developer to test, and you mentioned that too on the product page and different assets. Before you had to update the iOS app itself, so you had to do a new release. Whereas on Google, we all know about our beloved Google experiments. If anyone on the audience is not yet using Google Experiments or they're wondering what the hell Google Experiments is about, I suggest you to pause right now and just do a quick Google search, because that's going to be one of your most beneficial tools available for free. So it's good that Apple is following suit, or at least starting. They're providing tools who are more useful, I would say, to a digital developer, of an iOS developer. What we used to do in the industry in the past, as still is today, I think is the norm, is like you do the test first on Google, Android, you draw the conclusions, and then you update the app with the winning assets or variants on iOS. So on the next release, you come up with the new icons and the screens on iOS. Now with these App Store and Connect product updates, this might be a thing of the past, but still, might take a while for day-to-day to change. People get used to specific methodology, and so using certain tools, using certain processes. I'm preferring, for instance, of testing and doing an A/B test on an icon. Now changing that and applying it for Apple, etc. It might take a bit of time for people to feel confident. Like, hey, I'm just going to rely ultimately directly on Apple, or hey, we're changing completely the way on how we approach this. My take is that the better you are from the source, the closer you are from the source, the better. As in, I'd rather draw conclusions from results coming from the App Store and Connect page, rather than relying on perhaps a third party, or maybe driving conclusions from my results on the Google experiment, which is on Android, which obviously is a different OS.
Yeah, we definitely agree at Stormaven. I mean, as a disclosure, we are one of the third parties that offer the A/B testing on a replicated App Store environment. But we definitely agree. I mean, the closer you are to the source, the better. We just believe that you need to do the best possible thing, and it's not always the optimal thing. It's just the best possibility, which included replicated App Store testing up to some point, because one side of it is that testing on Android led and taking the conclusions to the App Store in terms of creative optimization was a bit dirty, because the audience on Android is completely different than the audience on iOS. Right. And for folks that question that, I mean, I would just ask you where your revenues are coming from, and look at the monetization profiles of iOS users and Android users. It's just completely different audiences. For clear reasons, and on the App Store with product page optimization, or PPO, you can actually test on organic traffic, which is something that was impossible to do in the past. You can run an A/B test that gets actual search and browse traffic, which is amazing. We're really excited to see folks are leveraging that. But similar to the other features, it has been rolling out. Like, it's not there yet in terms of product page optimization. I think somebody from my team just wrote a piece about just collected feedback from the industry and challenges that folks are experiencing. So it's just kind of clunky. Like, in order to run a test, you need to you can't submit a new version of the app while the test is running, and if you do, it stops the test.
That's what I was saying. We have the tool, but it's still it's the beginning of. Now there is all that troubleshooting and people getting acquainted or used to that, and what you were pointing out as well, Jonathan. One of the reasons why you would use a third-party tool, i.e., for instance, Stormaven or one of your competitors, because ultimately you save time and you don't have to go through all these ordeals, because it's a tool that it's working and that many developers in the space uses. So there is a reason or a rationale behind why would you rather use a third-party tool versus going directly to the source. Just on some instances, managing the source is a pain in the ass.
Sure. We do have a few minutes left, and I want to just ask you one thing about the data and analytics, or the insights and analytics side of things. How are you, do you have any tips for somebody that is trying to now think about their data stack or their analytics stack in terms of mobile growth for the next year? Because a lot of people are in the planning stage. Like, what kind of tools we need? Is an MMP enough? Is it like the data and the insights that an MMP provides us is enough for us to make good, educated, intelligent decisions on budget allocation? What about the organic side with the new data coming in? Do we have a better possibility to measure the impact of different marketing activities anyway on organic? So do you have any tips for folks thinking about that?
Sure. Yeah, sure, absolutely. So the first and foremost is, do I need an MMP or not? And with Jonathan, you've been talking about deprecation or, Google and Apple becoming more friendly with this stuff. Yes, to date, you still do need an MMP. Okay, next question is, but should I pay for the MMP or should I go for the free version? I mean, I strongly encourage you, if you're serious about your app development, not necessarily game, but just maybe you're an app developer and you're serious about it, you definitely want to look into expensing, doing expenditure of getting a paid MMP. Just do a quick Google search, but Adjust, AppsFlyer, Singular, Coachella. These are, I think, the most common names.
The top, yeah.
What we have. Correct. What we have seen in the past is that, yes, Google Firebase, Engine, and the likes can be useful, but if you want to take it to the next level, what it makes the next level to actually take, a data-centric approach on how you're managing your app growth, you definitely need to rely on a third party who is reassuring you that what you're tracking is correct, and ultimately, it makes your life or your team's life easier because they don't have to rely on clunky or not fully working tools, which could be, as we were referring just now, the App Store Connect or Google or the Google Console. They're getting better, but day-to-day should be from a data insights perspective, and at least for growth, most of it should be coming from the MMP. That being said, there is a small caveat here.
I waited for this.
That being said, footnote is that on the organic side, for instance, you could argue that the insights or what you're going to see, given, without getting into much detail, given the way on how the App Store and Google Play reports, as you said before, browse, explore, paid installs or third-party as well. They call it different ways, or Abrifair, I think it is. This is becoming more and more a black box. I'm just, put things in perspective. So if you look into Google, we're talking about Google Android console. We still need to keep in mind that Google as well does advertising with Google Ads, which is why they make most of their money. If you look into Google Ads history, they're becoming more and more of a black box to the point where you don't actually get to pick where are you running your campaigns, nor what's you see the split afterwards and between their different properties or formats. But that used to be the case before. You used to be able to go down and decide where you want to run and what you're doing. I'm giving this example, this because that's likely what's going to happen with the console as well, where ultimately you're relying on what the source of truth is telling you. But on some instances, that even though, yes, they're reporting, and as I said before, yes, you have to rely. The closer you are to the source, the better, yes. But when it's time to work out the data behind it, the details that the consoles give you are not enough. If you're running a campaign, if you're doing a minimum spend of if you have a minimum amount of users acquisition spend per month, minimum over $5,000, I definitely suggest you to seriously consider a paid MMP. And in fact, many of these, yes, there's an extra cost there, but I'm aware that many of these MMPs offer they're not cheap, but they're not non-affordable either for small teams of indie developers. They're aware that they are the key on some instances, as I explained to you now. They may be the key of success, and as such, they want to encourage developers to get the MMP. So it's not that they're looking forward for a developer to grow. So that's when they make the money, right? When you are getting those 20 million downloads per month, But before that, when you're getting 20,000 downloads per month, they will offer you a more affordable package. And to wrap it up with the MMP front, now they might hit me on that, but I'd rather be transparent with this. To start with, it's unlikely that a developer needs all the other tools that they tend to offer. I'm referring to anti-fraud. I'm referring to data. The what's called the data, not called the APIs. I don't want to give names because then it feels like I'm specifically to one MMP. My point being that to start with, get the basics correct, which is tracking your main events. Make sure that you're getting those feedback to your MMP so you can track back what campaign is doing what. Try to leverage as well the money that you're paying. So you're gonna have an account manager. So you should be discussing with him or her how your conversion schema is set up for your scan networks campaigns, i.e., how you're running campaigns with the IDFA being deprecated. If any of those words, any of the last 10 seconds didn't make sense to anyone, that's what you want to look into. And that's where an NLP can definitely assist you in saying, hey, you should be setting up these conversion values, or I suggest you to work towards an event or revenue-based conversion schema. And there are many examples, but obviously they are ultimately, they see many developers. I still pinpoint that with game developers. So we specialize in managing games, and we do it so well because, as I said before, we see many genres and we get better and better and pinpointing what works best on which one. Mm-hmm. Same goes with the MMPs. They see many app developers, and as such, they get a really good expertise or insights on what seems to be working or what most developers or marketeers are currently doing. I'm referring to the schema, for instance. So try to get that support, but do not bother yet with those upsells, I would call it. Wait until your app or game is doing better, and that's when it might make sense for you to look into those. Or otherwise, just if you're a game developer and it's a good game, reach out to Tilting Point, and then we cover the MMP for you.
Great conclusion.
I gotta throw Tilting Point hook somewhere, Jonathan.
For sure. You can if you're successful and you have a good game, you can have access to Enric.
That was right, sure. Yeah, sure.
Growing your app. Cool. So we have to wrap it up because we're running out of time. I felt this was a good conclusion for the conversation, with really good tips to folks in different levels of scale with their games and apps. There are a few questions we ask all of our guests. So the first one is, what's your favorite mobile growth resource? Like a content recommendations that folks need to, somebody they need to follow, something they need to read. Yeah,
if someone is saying mobile dev memo, I think it's the mobile dev memo. It's just a recurring item. Ongoing.
Yeah, everybody's saying that. Like Eric Soffert is cool and is really. I read his stuff all the time. But if you have any...
I gotta say for non-English speakers, the I think I talked about that when non-English speakers, the articles might be a bit overwhelming. So take it easy because
it's tough. It's tough for every
right.
Again, nothing against Eric Sufer.
No, by no means.
I need the dictionary. I need the dictionary to read the article. And
hey, it's good. Yeah. There are many words that look. I've been English, not first language, but I've considered myself native last 15 years, and there are many words that I read through that and like, gosh, I never heard of that word before. So that's good. But so mobile dev memo, but the Slack channel. So there is that Slack channel which is open, it's for free, and from Eric Sofer's website. That's definitely one of the really good source, probably the best source. Then there is as well, if you are related with your organic. The guys at Feature, which is an ASO agency, they have as well, I think it's called the ASO Stack or ASO...
The ASO Stack, yeah.
Yes, correct. So these would be my main sources of information day to day to see what's going on there. Beyond that, podcasts. Obviously, I'm talking to this one today, so Mobile Pancakes is a good one, but there are many others, and it's really cool to see that podcast maybe became a trend in the last couple of years. So you get to hear not people like me, but other folks in the space who have a really good expertise. So even though on most podcasts you cannot go down into a lot of detail, it is still, I think, really cool for you to be able to pick someone else's brains through an interview, right?
For sure.
So you get most of the strategies and the insights are like, okay, I knew about this, but there are some golden nuggets every now and then that are good to keep an eye on. There is the last one. I think it's called Mobile Growth Gems. I think it is. I'm from Sylvain.
Oh yeah, Sylvain from Babel.
Yes,
yeah,
correct.
That's great.
So I know he started that.
He basically picks, like, he listens to a lot of podcasts and goes to a lot of webinars and conferences and stuff, and just summarize like these gold nuggets you mentioned. So I would definitely recommend.
Correct. So if you don't have the time, yes. So then I will argue that actually is could be a good way for you to actually get like a brief summary of what's cooking in the space. I will definitely the mobile growth and gems. Yes, that's the one I will aim for too.
Cool. And almost last question: what is your favorite flavor of pancake? Let's say if your time in the US have ruined you, or you're
no, it's sweet and savory. So I will ask. When I used to be in the US, I normally ask for it was like the full on, which is with egg and bacon, but then add syrup on top. So it's gonna be a bit of the maple and a bit of the well-cooked bacon. And that was, to me, the perfect pancake. To my wife, that is horrible. And she's rather happy with blueberries, but hey, that's different taste, right?
Yeah, that's my selection. I'm still with bacon and maple. That's you can't beat that. And lastly, if people wanna reach out and chat, either they're a game developer and they have a game they want to reach out about, or just talk about growth or anything else, where can they find you?
Sure. So easiest one, it's gonna be LinkedIn, Enric Pedró. Another one is going to be via Twitter. So you look as well for Enric Pedró. That's going to be me, although there I'm more rather mobile. I'm lately more on the NFT or crypto wagon, but that's just a personal interest. But that's likely to be, if you drop me a DM there, it's likely to be the fastest one, either that or LinkedIn.
Awesome. Cool. So thank you very much for doing this. This was a pleasure. Really enjoyed talking with you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been great. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.
And that was Mobile Growth and Pancakes. To find out more about StoreMaven and how we can improve App Store performance, visit storemaven.com. And then make sure to search for Mobile Growth and Pancakes in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at StoreMaven, thanks for listening.